Dominic isn't here today because, well, it's school hours, but I still want to do the video. So let's get started. So after putting Christian, Sasuke, and Naruto under a tree, Dominic, Izumi, and Sakura stay watch. Dominic knowing water style is a big help in this part of the story, giving water style after water style. So basically, when the Sound 3, I'm gonna call them the Sound 3, would approach, they'd say, "We want you, Chiha." He says, "You're not getting him." He says, "Oh, send you, even better." He'd shoot a blast of wind. Dominic would say, "Wood style, wood prism," blocking it, but still getting a couple of cuts. He'd say, "Wood style, wood dragon jutsu," going da-na-na-na-na, coming right at him. Dominic's would say, he would go, "Ah!" But then, something else would happen in Christian's mind. Kurama tries to get Christian to wake up, because he knows his friends are in trouble. But Kurama, if you guys remember in the Naruto 6 Pass mode, in his fight against Sasuke, Naruto yeeted out his arm, like literally yeeted out his arm when Sasuke went for the fireball, but before that when he yeeted it, when his arm extended, basically purple arms go and start to, like chakra purple arms, kind of like the 6 Pass mode, start grabbing Kurama. Kurama's trying to push them back, saying "Tailed Beast Bomb!" blasting through them, saying, "What the hell is this?" Basically, more of them would go and rap Christian, would say, awakening him. A dark, evil aura. Now this is mad evil aura. They go, "What the? That is so evil aura." Christian's eyes would be glowing purple. Not renegade people. Both of his eyes would have purple pigmentation around, but it's all on his eye. He'd go, and his hands are chakra fists, basically like Naruto 6 Pass, and clawed up. He'd say, walking forward, basically he rushes towards Zaku, shooting his arm forward, breaking Zaku's arm straight away, going, "Ah!" Then he'd take Dosu to a dark place in his mind. He'd start disappearing left and right, saying, "I'm going through your mind." And then when Dosu says, Christian would say, "Goodbye," punching forward, killing Dosu with a single punch, saying, he says, "Dark style, dark dragon!" A water dragon, but purple, and it's much more bigger. A three-headed Hydra dragon goes and bites, killing them all, saying, then calming down out of the form, saying, "What the hell was that?" His eyes are not purple, his eyes are back to normal. He says, "What was that?" Christian goes into his time psyche thing and says, "Kurama, are you okay?" He says, "What the hell was that?" He goes, "That happened to you too?" He says, "Yeah, 2 giant arms came at me, so I blasted them away with my tailed beast bomb, but then they are wrapped around you. If I used my chakra, it would have just enveloped that form even stronger, and you would have probably killed your teammates." He says, "I want to harness that power and make it my own." He says, "You are one crazy person." He says, "Let's just go." He'd pick up the scroll and say, "Here goes nothing." Walking through. And Sasuke and Naruto would eventually wake up earlier, taking them to the tower, all 6 of them winning. Now going on to the Chunin exam. Fight! The first match, Sasuke Uchiha versus the normal Oboro ninja dude. He gets wrecked. Next match, this is a terrible one. It's Christian versus Gaara. Christian goes, "Oh, I'm facing Gaara, huh? I'm ready." Christian pulls out a kunai and says, "Well, Gaara, I guess it's our turn to fight." But then, like Naruto in the Road to Ninja movie, he'd hear a heartbeat, a giant one going, doo-doom, doo-doom, going like, going down on one knee saying, "What the?" He says, Kurama says, "Not this again." Fisher would cut through all the arms inside of his body, slicing through. Everyone's like, "Is he okay?" Spitting out some blood, saying, my proctor's like, "This kid is not okay." Cutting through all of it, until finally Kurama is about to get enveloped by it, but then he says, "Tail Beast Bomb!" Chris would say, "Kurama! Kurama! Lightning style, lightning ball!" Shooting lightning bolts right at the arms, hitting them but not doing that much. And then he's engulfed by it and he says, "Shoot!" The proctors are about to end the match when Dark Oro, they're like, "No!" They're like, "What the?" Again, he'd go into that state. No, Dominic, the Naruto, Sakura, Dominic, and Izumi know that too. Gaara shoots in. Christian would say, "Nice try." Grabbing one hand and yeeting his arm forward, breaking through Gaara's in, hitting Gaara in the face, saying, Tamari and Conqueror are like, "He hit Gaara? There's no way." And he says, disappearing, saying, clawing Gaara in the face into there, saying, with Gaara's face into the wall, he says, charges up a lightning palm and shocks him, saying, with a maniacal laugh, saying, "That's all you got, One Tail? Well, how about I show you even more?" Holding Gaara up in the air, choking him while punching him rapidly over and over and over, saying, "This is gonna end terribly." Tamari would say, "Sensei, we have to step in. He's gonna die." He says, "Yes." Tamari says, "Wind style, wind scythe." Shooting a big, and Christian would say, "Nope." Using his own wind blast, blocking it, suppressing it, saying, "You wanna do this, huh?" He shoots his arm forward, going, breaking Tamari's fan, clean incinerating it, saying, "Fire style, fireball jutsu!" Creating a big fireball, colliding, saying, turning around and yeeting a punch into Gaara's stomach, saying, "Yeet!" And they say, "Geez, this is a brutal match." Chris would stop out of that form. He's like, "What the?" He says, "What happened?" He says, You went into that weird form again." He goes, "What form are you talking about? I don't know." "What form you're talking about? How is Tobirama that low? Like, didn't this thing just start?" Basically, when he'd do that, he'd say, "Dang it." So Gaara is still ready to fight. Gaara can still fight. Gaara would shoot so much sand at him, and Chris would say, "Oh, you have that kind of technique too." Chakra chains would come out, cutting right through it, holding Gaara still, saying, "Eh." But then he realizes that's gonna corrupt him again. He says, "Whatever." He binds Gaara even harder with his chakra chains. He goes, until Gaara starts to spit out blood, saying, "Help!" Now, to resume Purple Guy's death, if you remember that from FNAF, Gaara goes, as each of Christian's chakra chains pierce into Gaara. He goes, "Someone, help!" All the people have to stop him from killing Gaara. They have to stop him. The third Hokage would use a suppression seal, see if that'll work on him. It doesn't. He says, "So, trying to suppress me, eh, old man?" He says, "I don't care if you're the Hokage. No one interferes with what I do." He says, "He won't hit the Hokage. Isn't the Hokage one of his friends?" He says, "I think it might be, so why would he attack him?" He says, "Is that corruption still there?" He says, "No, it's not, Kakashi. It's gone." He goes, "Fine." He says, But then he creates a chakra spear. He creates a chakra chain spear and says, nope. Gaara with his hardest defense blocks it. But then it breaks through, putting it right to Gaara's throat, saying, surrender. He says, I surrender. He goes, that's all I wanted to hear, is you surrendering your fate! That's all I wanted. Your fate in my hands. He'd go, it's not beside me. You're not defeating me. Basically, when that's over, basically all of it, all the matches are over. The 30-day time, the 1 month training arc. Basically, Naruto would go to Jiraiya, Chris would go to somewhere to train this corruption form. He'd ask Kakashi if he can have some help. Kakashi would say he's helping Sasuke. And he says, maybe I'll ask him. And he goes, I don't really ask him for help, but if it's for the tuning exams, and it's for the village's sake, I'll do it. He runs to the Hokage office saying, Lord Hokage. He goes, wow, that's the first time you've ever called me that. He says, okay then, old man. He says, old man, can you help me train? He says, what do you mean? He says, I want to train that corruption form to its maximum. He says, really? That's very good. He says, because that almost killed Gaara, but I didn't care really. He says, yeah, that form is very strong. He says, you're a new Uzumaki, right? He says, I'd never ever heard of a form like that. Even when you shoot, he says, that's gotta be in the top tier forms. That's gotta be that might be even. He says, what happened in your mind? Did anything happen? He says, yeah. Giant purple chakra arms came to attack me and Kurama. He says, who is Kurama? He says, Ninetales. He goes, wow, no one ever should. He says, and he also says, the reason why Kurama started attacking even when he was done being mind controlled is because the way that that he was angry that they mind controlled him, that he was just used again. And he goes, well then we'll have to use the Ninetales and make it happy, because if we want to treat it like our own villager, then we can. Basically, and Christian says he doesn't have as much hate as the one that Naruto has, but he has a lot of hate for humans. He goes, well, that's not good. He says, so can you train me in this form? He says, I'm gonna need a couple of more ninja for this. He has the top tierest Jonin to help him out. He says, we're gonna train that he says, little Kage, he's probably just lying about it. He says, no, I saw it with my own eyes. I've seen it with my own eyes. He says, okay, Lord Kage. When it starts, Christian would say, activating the chakra claws, but he's still out of control. The chakra arms crash onto Kurama, and they also crash onto Christian. He tries to fight it so it'll be normal. It's insanely hard. He goes, a giant explosion happens. Going into his corruptions. I'm gonna call this form the corruption. He's become corrupted over by the purple aura. He's got glowing eyes. They're like, what the? And his hands are purple clawy, chakra purple claws. He goes, his teeth are longer. Basically, he starts, and they say, no, try and fight it. It's okay if you die. It's worth the sacrifice. He goes, what the? And he goes, just kidding, I will protect you all with my life. I may even use the Reaper Death Seal on him if he does go too far. Chris would say, slamming his fist forward. breaking one of the Hokage guard's arms already. He goes, what amazing strength. He goes, we're gonna need a whole ninja, we're gonna need like a whole nother village to help us train this. He goes, ah! About to hit the Hokage with a big strike. The Hokage would dodge out of the way, kicking him in the side of the ribs, sending him flying. Chris would slam his fist into the ground, clawing it, going, ah! I will not go down! Ah! Being really tough about this. He's like, gee! Everyone's like, this guy... I don't know if my door just tried to open. Whatever. We say, here it goes. Ah! Shooting even more air blasts at them, killing him. I'm kidding. He hits one with full brunt and knocking it out. Basically doing decent amount of damage. Hitting him with full force. Then Christian would just one snap of his fingers sends a shockwave down and says, it's what behind me. No one can inside me. He takes the Hokage and his thing into a dark place, saying, he says, ah, shooting his chakra arm even farther, hitting the third Hokage, actually doing decent amount. The Hokage says, this is just strength. Says, if he can master this power, the Leaf Village will be at the strongest it could ever be. Christian hears this on his side in his mind. He says, Kurama, you were right. All these humans are just dumb. They only use us Jinchuriki to keep their tail beast inside. And they use you guys for powers. I'm starting to get sick of this. Starting to get really annoying. He goes, so kid, what are you gonna do? He says, I might turn to the dark side and turn against this crappy village. He says, all these villages just use us Jinchuriki for nothing. And there's no point in even being there. I mean, like, what's the point, Kurama? Nothing's the point. There's no point of anything! Everything is just useless. He is mad. He's like, mad. He doesn't even want to see right now. He's like, ah! He's like mad. So he shoots even harder, breaking the third Hokage's arm. And then he appear right in front of him with a shadow clone, putting a suppression seal, calming him down. He goes, Dah! Chris says, I heard what you said. He says, what? He says, you only care that I'm the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. If I wasn't, then you wouldn't even care. Chris would run away saying, I'm just used. I'm just a pawn for the Nine-Tail. And I saw how you do this. You just use me. Just like you all use that's all how 5 great nations use the tail beast for just power. Why can't you just treat them as assets? You don't. You use them as power. It's not fair. Well, meanwhile, Dominic is basically training somewhere else. Dominic's training on his own. After 1 month of training at Forum, Christian can finally use it with little to no difficulty. Basically, when it starts, Christian would fight Neji. A heartbeat would happen. Everyone hears it, and they're like, and go, ah! He's got his giant chakra arm yeeting it forward. breaking Neji instantly, knocking him out, saying, "That was easy." They all say, "You freak! You hurt the..." How everyone is mad that he beat the Hyuga. They say that was pure luck. Christian says, "Why don't you come say that to my face, you losers?" Everyone starts throwing things at him, saying, "You freak! You almost killed him, you freak!" And won't stop throwing stuff at him. And he goes, "What did I do? All I did was beat him." Neji says, "This is destiny." He goes, "I'm destined to be hated?" He goes, "Yes, you're destined to be hated." He says, "Then I don't want this destiny. I don't want to have a destiny where I'm forced to be hated. Why can't someone be nice to me? I'm just a normal person." I'm a normal person just like you all. What makes me so bad? Chris would glare at all of them with full bloodlust, and they all just calm down. And he walks up saying, "That's what you all get." He sits right in the next match. Dominic versus Sasuke. This is a freaking good one. Everyone says this is the Madara versus Hashirama remake. Everyone's like, this is the final battle. Oh, yo, bro, this is the final battle, bro. Yo. When the battle would start, Sasuke would say, "Fire style, fireball jutsu." Dominic would say, "Wood style, wood dragon." The wood dragon would be engulfed, but also stop it. Eating actually the fire, going, "Oh," and going, "Ah!" Hitting Sasuke with full force, taking away some of his chakra, then jumping up in the air, saying, "Wood style, deep forced emergence." Binding him, saying, "Fire style, fireball jutsu." That's what Dominic would say. Burning him. And then Sasuke would backflip all the way up, saying, "Chidori!" Going shimbang. About to hit Dominic, Dominic would say, "Wood style, deep forest emergence." Tons of wood would come at him, and Dominic would say, he'd say, "Eat this." Sasuke would say, "Ah!" Putting his hand forward, blasting through all the wood. Dominic says, "Shoot!" He gets hit by the Chidori with a blast of lightning go through him, and he goes, "Oh." But then 5 seconds later, he stands right back up and says, "Wood style, wood swords." Pulling from his back, he pulls out 2 wooden swords, starts beating down Sasuke with them, cutting him up. So Chris would, yes, "Hey, Dominic!" And he goes, "What?" He says. He does a couple of hand signs and says, "Do it!" He goes, "Alright." Dominic would say, pulling a whole hand sign, saying, "Wood style, wood pellet, wood sprinters," creating so many wood splinters, putting his hand forward, going, all wood splinters would cut Sasuke up, some of them even getting stuck in him. Going, defeating Sasuke. He'd say, he says, "No fair, that kid cheated, that kid told him to do it." He says, "How is that him? How is that my fault? All I did was show him hand signs." He says, "I didn't even know that jutsu, those are made up hand signs. So don't blame me." So one person says, "I've had enough with this brat. Let's all gang up on him." He says, "He can't beat us." Person says, "I heard that." By the way, people, this is not like the Zamasu thing. You know, the Zamasu, Zamasu, not like the Zamasu corruption. He goes, going, are you done now? Sewer, sewer, cha-cha-cha. I was just remembering that from SpongeBob. He'd say, ah! Creating 2 chakra arms, going, saying, appearing right next to that person, picking them up by their body, by like their chin. Literally, his hands are so big he can pick them up, saying, you want to say that again? He goes, eating him like a baseball out of the village, saying, ugh! He says, I'm done with this. He leaves the Chunin Exam Stadium after all the matches, going, Christian is promoted to Chunin for the strongest attack ever. Christian is promoted to Chunin and he says, whatever, I don't even want to become Chunin. And he just gives it and he says, whatever. When he gets home, he says, he starts illegal and you're going to have to be going to Shinobi. You're going to be under arrest. And he goes, I yeeted a Shinobi out of the village. How is that bad? He says, you attacked one of your own comrades. To be a wording, you're banished from the village. No, he wouldn't say that. He'd say, you're under arrest. You have a warrant to be arrested. Krish would crush the handcuffs, saying, I'll leave then. Blitzing out of the village. Running out of the village. A couple of months later, after Christian's training out of the village, because he left the village, they all find out and they're like, he left the village? And Tsunade Hokage by then. So they put out a rescue team. The rescue team is Dominic. Dominic would be the leader since he's also a Chunin. It'd be Dominic, Sasuke, Shikamaru, Choji, Naruto. And yeah, Choji, and Kiba and Neji. That's the team that they have to use. So when they all go, the Sound 4 wouldn't really be there. He'd just be by himself. They'd finally track down his location and go there. He'd say, what do you want? He says, you're coming back to the village. He says, why? So I can be treated more like a literal user of power? I'm used in this damn village. I'm not even a part of it. I'm used, just like Naruto is. We're both used as the Nightales vessels. Literally no one cares. If we died, they only care because the Nightales would be released. No one cares. As you saw in the Chunin exams, everyone hated me for beating Neji. What's the problem with that? Why? What did I do? He says, you can forget about bringing me back. And Blitz is saying, everyone's like, shoot. And they all have to run after him. He goes, stupid villagers, I'm used for nothing. Jumping even farther ahead, saying, ah! Picking up the speed, going even faster. He says, they're coming soon already, aren't they? Chris would head to somewhere called the Final Valley and wait there for them. He'd say, I'll wait right here. He's standing on the Madara one. When he stands on the Madara one, he says, whatever. And says, they all arrive and say, you're coming back to the village. He says, you're gonna have to fight me first. He says, gladly. Neji would say, Byakugan! Naruto would say, ah! Charging up his chakra to the maximum. Sasuke would say, Sharingan! Dominic would say, Senjutsu chakra! Ah! He says, Kiba would say, man-based mimicry! Choji would say, Super Expansion Jutsu! Christian would say, so, you're all going all out, huh? He goes, then I will. He says, Kurama, can you let this one thing happen? He says, fine, I'll let you. He goes, ah! Going to the one-tailed state with the claws out. Going, his eyes are slit like purple. He's got the cloak on and he says, go away. I don't want to see you. They all start rushing. Christian would, from a mouth beam, blast them all back. Dominic would say, wood style, wood dragon jutsu. Christian would say, one blast of wind, sending it all back, saying, Naruto would say, Rasengan! He'd say, chakra chains would appear out of him, binding up Naruto, going, Zah! And he says, one movement and I'll slice your neck off. I'll decapitate you. He goes, Zah! Sasuke would appear up behind saying, Chidori! He would say, releasing the chakra chains, going back, with grabbing both of Sasuke's shoulders and slamming him into the water, going, yeah! Then saying, shooting his chakra arm forward, breaking through, breaking them all back, going, yeah! He'd say, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone! Dominic would say, wood style, laughing Buddha jutsu! When the two arms would crash, Christian would put both his hands out, crushing them both, saying, I told you to leave me alone! Christian would say, ah! Right from his mouth, blasting Neji back, saying, ah! I'm gonna kill you! Grabbing Neji's face and slamming it in the ground, knocking out Neji for good. For now, he says, that's one out. Now for dog breath. He'd go right in front of Kiba, kneeing him right in the stomach so hard that he's knocked out instantly, saying, Akamare! Akamaru would go, Christian would say, you're a good dog. Treat Kiba well. Puts one finger and knocks out Akamaru. He says, Naruto would say, Rasengan! Christian would say, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone! When Naruto would grab it, Christian would say, lightning blade! Shiden! They'd clash, but the Shiden eventually beating it, saying, Gah! Then he'd say, backhanding Naruto in the face, a full force, sending Naruto into the Hashirama one. Sasuke would say, appear right behind him, saying, Chidori! Christian would say, Christian would one foot, would put his foot all the way behind him, kicking Sasuke in the face, going, I said leave me alone and I mean it! Dominic would say, wood style, wood prison! Trapper Christian would say, blasting out of the prison again, sending the wood pieces back, saying, that's it! Going into his two-tailed state, appearing right in front of Sasuke, kneeing him straight in the stomach, knocking him instantly out. Naruto would go into his one-tailed state out of anger, going, shooting it, and these two chakra arms are clasped with Christian, instantly destroying Naruto's chakra arm and kicking Naruto in the face. Then he'd say, hey Dominic, remember me? And punch him in the face, knocking him out. I'm not making myself too overpowered. I just want to go rogue so I can give Dominic more screen time. Basically, he'd say, with one punch, knocking Dominic out, saying, he'd say, Naruto would go, these two, Christian would appear on the Madara one, and Naruto would appear on the Hashirama one. Naruto would say, Rasengan! It's like he's comforting the Rasengan. He would say, Shiden! They'd go and clash. Christian would say, ah! But when they're about to, Christian would say, ah! Appearing right above, saying, ah, Shiden! Right onto Naruto's back, slamming him down to the ground to say, I'm sorry, you, but goodbye. He'd go and jump out the leaf village going, Kakashi says, I was too late. Because all of them were knocked out by one shinobi. He says, Kurama, I think it's time we get going. He says, okay, let's go. So that's it for this part of What If We Were in Naruto Remap.